Welcome back to another episode of Vlogs of History. I'm your host, Darius Cousin, and today we're taking a look at one of history's most strategic generals, Hannibal. Famously defeating the Romans in many battles, often using elephants as part of his army, even turning Roman cities against the Romans, Hannibal was very well known and very well feared, for good reason too. Hannibal was a Punic military commander from Carthage, which is now located in Tunisia, and he is considered one of the greatest military commanders in history. He lived during a period of great tension in the Mediterranean between the Roman Empire and the Carthaginians. Now these two had previously been at war in a war called the First Punic War, in which the Carthaginians had lost, and as a result of their loss, they were allowed to keep their main capital of Carthage, some territories in Spain, as long as they paid what they owed to Rome and did not make any attempts to get any new territory from Rome. Hannibal wasn't okay with that. He wanted more and he wanted war. He wasn't okay with the idea that he would be stuck in his home city of Carthage and wanted to take down the Roman Empire in its entirety. He then proceeded to attack one of the Roman cities, effectively breaching the treaty that was signed and putting the two empires back at war again. This was the start of the Second Punic War. Hannibal wanted to take on the Romans bit by bit, city by city, but he knew that he couldn't because he did not have enough armies to support him. Unfortunately, the Carthaginian Senate wasn't too keen on sending Hannibal a lot of armies because they didn't see his attempt to take down Rome as something that could be successful. Hannibal then set up his own strategy independent from the Senate and went off on his own to try to take on Rome. He knew that a lot of Roman cities weren't too happy with the way the Roman Empire was running things, so he thought to use himself as an image of a liberator to liberate the Romans from the unfair rule of the Roman Empire. That way, he wouldn't need a big army to start with, he would just get more people as he conquered Rome. Now, Hannibal was very smart and very brave. He thought to make his move in Roman territory by crossing the Alps. Now, for those who don't know, the Alps are very big mountains that are very hard to cross, especially with a big army. Hannibal had a lot of siege equipment and even some elephants that he was forced to leave behind, not all the elephants, but some of them, because you can't really cross the Alps with that much baggage with you. The reason Hannibal wanted to cross the Alps was that he wanted the element of surprise on his side. He knew that if he crossed the Alps, the Romans would never expect somebody coming from the Alps, especially with a huge army behind him, and he could get the element of surprise and effectively defeat the Romans. Hannibal's surprise plan worked. The Romans had absolutely no idea that he was coming into Roman territory. In fact, they thought he was far away, settling down and being quiet. When he finally reached Roman territory, he started winning battle after battle and getting new supporters along the way. The reason why he won so many battles was that he had studied the Romans beforehand, knew exactly what they were doing, and had built his own strategy to be superior than them in combat. And of course, he had elephants on his side. Where else would you see elephants in an army? The Romans were petrified. In one of his most famous battles, he is believed to have won against an army that was twice the size of his own. The way he did this was very brilliant. He had set up his light infantry in front, his heavier infantry behind, out of view from the Romans, and the cavalry on the side. When the Romans attacked Hannibal's army, the light infantry retreated, luring the Roman army deeper into Hannibal's army, and then they were faced with the heavy infantry at the back. All the while, the cavalry had the time to surround the Romans from behind and have them completely surrounded. Out of these 60,000 Roman men that were believed to have been there that day, only about 10,000 came out. This was Hannibal's most famous victory over the Romans. Hannibal, after these victories, wanted to take on Rome, the capital of the Roman Empire, but he couldn't because the Senate would still not give him more armies or equipment to take down a big city. So Hannibal was forced to stay in Italy for a while, not doing much progress. Hannibal eventually met his match when a new Roman general volunteered to take on Hannibal directly in battle. His name was Scipio. Now Scipio, he wasn't like the other Roman generals. He actually had studied Hannibal's tactics and had built a strategy of his own specifically for Hannibal. When the two finally met in battle, Scipio was well prepared. He had built his army to look like he was using the Roman standard strategy to fool Hannibal into thinking this would be just another easy win. Hannibal of course took the bait and launched his elephants right into Scipio's army. Scipio of course had anticipated this and split up his army, letting the elephants pass right through, killing off their riders and then luring them back and shooting them towards Hannibal's army, turning Hannibal's own weapons against him. Scipio wanted Hannibal out of Roman territory, so he thought to attack his capital city. The reasoning was that if you attack his capital city, Hannibal would be forced to leave Rome and go defend his city. And that's exactly what happened. His plan worked. After that, the Romans began to win battle after battle, and Hannibal was forced to leave from city to city. The reason was that after each loss, the Romans would always demand Hannibal's head in the treaty. Hannibal had nowhere else to go. He tried to build new armies to fight off the Romans, but it was always unsuccessful. And when he knew that the Romans would eventually come for him, he killed himself by drinking poison to avoid the unfortunate death that the Romans would give him. And that was the end of Hannibal. Alright, so that was it for this week's episode of Vlogs of History. Please let me know, how do you like the show? What do you like about the show? What do you not like about the show? How can I improve what's good already as it is? I would love to hear your feedback, and I base myself off of that to improve the show as best as I can. If you like this episode, please leave a like, share it to a friend, and subscribe to be notified when the next episode comes out. Remember, these episodes come out every single Monday, and if you've missed last week, I'll leave a link right here and in the description. Make sure to check it out. As always, I'm your host, Darius Cousin. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I will see you all next week.